All right, we're back. So you got everything together. This one came off, but we got everything together. What we got to do now is take these off. These are going to be a 2.5. First off, let's take this guy off. Now, there is going to be a point where you might have to chop some of this off. Any blade, especially like an X-Acto blade, does the job very nicely and quick. You also need to cut off. There's going to be a point where you might need to take one of these, either a little bit on each side, or that's going to have to be measured later. Oh, wait, this is the rear. All right, let's put those aside. So this guy's going to go here. Is it going to be in the way? It might get in the way. But I don't want this to come off. Why am I being lazy today? I don't know. So we got the pin in here somewhere. Let's take this guy out. Boom. Turn this, put this in. Wait, where's the hole? Pop it in. This is gonna fit nice and snug. It's practically exactly. Wait, not that exact. Where's my knife? Might have gone a little too deep, but that's perfect. No, I went in too deep. Where's my blade? Space that out a tiny bit. All right. Here we go. Put that pin in. Where is it? Come on. Yeah, that went in too deep. God damn it. This cheaper plastic, man. I remember it being a lot smoother with the PA12. Let's try it. Oops. Let's try this one more time. Maybe I should do it with this one first. Make sure it goes in. That way we're lined up better. Pop this one in. Wait. I think I put the wrong one in. Yeah, it is a fat one. So make sure you're using the fat one. Let me zoom that. Make sure you're using the fat one and not the skinny one. The skinny one, actually, we already used here to make sure we don't mess that up. So stock goes in here. Oops. This isn't that much of a professional video, but all right, let's do this. So that's in. Remember, because of this version, there, you don't want to over tighten because of the plastic. It shouldn't back out. Now we need a 2.5, so let's take these out. The reason why I put this first is I don't want this to back out. It's kind of, it ends up, you know, if it pulls out and this and that, you don't want to end up with stuff falling apart. So, see, when I did my math, that is exact. That's when I did my math. That's the whole reason why this sticks out the same way. Because of screw sizes, stuff that's available. I could have done it a tiny bit smaller, but then I wouldn't have the correct screw sizes. So it ended up being an exact 40 millimeter length screws that are needed. That's why it is the way it is. I wish I can do, if I can do mathematically this exact cover, I'd be able to make a much smaller, much more snugger design. Maybe in the future. Take these off. So you got these three. Stays in place. You don't want that moving. Make sure you got everything. This one, your fork, slider's in place. This is in place. So this piece is going to go in this bearing. So look at the way you got these three. And there you go. Slide it in. Wow. That means, see, these are exact. Boom. I like to hold it down and make sure there's no play. A tiny bit of play. I cut this a little too small, to be honest. This is hardly floating. Don't make that mistake. That bearing, put a bearing in there, and then a washer or two. I mean, you are limited to the depth of this bearing. That's why I say, put the bearing with a washer, mark it. I know in the cutting video I said scratch it, but you can always use a pen or a silver marker, anything to mark it that you can visually see it. You don't want to undercut it. I slightly cut it when you see it somewhere here at an angle, which is no good. But let's see how much it holds up. It's always trial and error. Point is, you want these to hit as much as they can. That way you know you want this like this. That's what the washers are for. If the washers weren't there, this would pop out more and then it's going to pop out of the bearing. But, or if you put too many spacers, then you're going to end up with this floating and you're going to over tighten and smash stuff. You want this to be flush with a tiny amount of movement. That's good. So let's tighten this up. Take your trusty 2mm. Let's go a little bit at a time. Just make sure they get into the hole. Was it not long enough? Oh yeah, by the way, this is a far amount of depth before you actually get to the thread, which I kind of forgot to right now. So let's not mess this up. Go all the way in. Big wasted thread. In a funny way, I think it is. So just keep threading until it gets all the way inside. See how deep that is? Eventually you'll feel it. There you go. So now I can start threading the rest of it. Pretty much snug right there. Let's go until we're snug. Boom. Screw this guy in. If you do use a screwdriver, a drill, some sort of electric, I don't know why I go blank when I think too much. Make sure you do it by hand at the end. You don't want to strip this. I go just finger strength. I don't like to, I tend to break things all the time. I got big hands. I'm a strong guy. So now I tend to do whatever my finger strength can do, not the whole hand. Especially when it comes to plastic. You don't want to strip this. The last thing you want to do is strip this, because then you're really going to get screwed and have to buy a whole box. From my experience, this is pretty rigid. It stays in place. So now, for example, this little hook, you have to mimic this guy. See, this is your 2-speed transmission. mimic this little thing. See? So this is all of them together. Let me just show you for an example. Where's the front? Here's the front. Here's the rear. They all spin. If you can set it up for three-way, you can always pop out where the front actually spins and the rear is in neutral. See how this spins, but the rear doesn't spin? That's technically neutral. Pull it all the way, it locks in place. So this one will spin, the front, but the rear is locked. And you got it, that's it. But you're going to have to create one of these, super long. I'll show you in a second why. Let me just put these away. So these now you can save, just in case you decide to put it back. Which I don't think you would. You're going to like this. You're going to like this dig. If you can dig it. So here's the one I built. Ooh, close up. If you can see it. Where are we? I'm trying to look through the camera. Boom. Oh, we're too high. Here. You got this here. This one, I run it all the way across. Come on, truck. All the way across. So what I did was, here's my little secret. I'm using the front bumper mount. I moved the servo from here to here. So then what you do is you take this guy and you trade it for the rear. Now, because this was a custom build, I already had an extra version of this, so I never did it. But when it comes to not having it, for example, on my stock TRX, which everyone's going to be using. Oh, that's funny. Now I know why. Here's the rear. You want to take this out. I took it off of this truck. As you can see right here. So for you guys, you're going to take, just a second. If you already did the front mount, you're going to take your front one, which would be your servo mount, trade it with the rear, put it back here. And then take your rear and put it in here. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't bother anything. Unless you want to spend the money and just buy a brand new one, that's fine. I'm just trying to save a little money here because it's a lot of parts to buy to do this, to make this happen. So that's where you have to make. My point of this and the example of this was to make the giant servo piece. So rear servo. Let me show you the bottom. From the rear. Servo. I created this nitro style springs. I'm afraid of breaking the servo when you're in the middle of shifting. If let's say you're running it and you hit the dig really quick, or it somehow gets stuck. See, right now you can manually, because of my spring, but I set it so that it's exactly here. When I pull, that split second of missing and the wheels turning, I don't want to risk breaking the servo. So I created this. Now let me show you that while we're at it. I went to the hobby store and bought this stuff. This is usually for airplanes. This little guy. This one goes into the servo horn. The rod passes through here. This is called my Dubro. It's usually, you'll see it easy connectors with reusable nylon or a permanent. I use the permanent one. And then you get some of these. I use the 332 collars. That's what holds the little springs in between. Now the little springs I got off of pens. I went to the Dollar Tree again, to the dollar store again, and I bought some just colored pens. Oh, my little stickers. Bought some colored pens, the clicking ones, and I took the springs off, and that's what I'm using. That was the cheapest way I can find to do it. My new way is I'm going to go with the servo saver because, to be honest, I'm not liking, every once in a while it doesn't want to come off a lock. When you go from lock to four-wheel drive, sometimes it gets stuck. You know, I'm in testing and I'm going to use one of these. This is a much stronger servo saver. The whole point of it is so you don't break your servo, but I know it's much stronger, so this will go in and out super quick. Won't have a problem. You should probably do that to begin with instead of the spring system, but it's all trial and error. Now I'm going to show you something. I don't want to move all this stuff. I gotta move this. Excuse me a second. This is going to be a long video, but I gotta show you guys everything before we finish. I run this truck very droop. Practically, if you notice, it's everything it goes. I gotta give it a little more suspension, but my problem now, even though this truck is running so much better dropped, my problem is down here. It ends up hitting the rod. So my idea, ouch, what I'm gonna do, like my other trucks, I noticed they don't really need this piece. They just put a nut behind it. I'm gonna take the servo saver, I'm gonna rotate it so this one is back here, and I'll probably end up making a hole or something back here. I'll just put nuts on this and this, or maybe just this one. That'll bring my servo back here, and I won't have the servo arm itself won't be directly above the differential, and they won't hit. Hopefully I'll have clearance for the rod. You do have this little hump here. I was saying, you do have that lump. I'm accidentally going to hit this button again. Where am I? You have this lump. Can we see it? Where are we? Nope. Camera's too high. There's a cable. Here. This piece is the bottom of the battery, but this is if you run that little thin battery, a tiny battery underneath, which I don't think most people do. So you could cut a little bit of portion here when this angles up for the servo to go all the way in the back. If you notice, I got two little holes here. I tried to put a little servo in here. It doesn't mount correctly. To be honest, it would clear it, I think. That's probably the best place to put it. So I might actually do it with the small mini servo. I might end up using one of these little original servos, and I gotta 3D make a special mount for it because there's no mount for a small servo that would just screw in like this. But to be honest, I'm gonna do it. That's the next step. So it's either this one or back here, move it out. That's the option.